All praises to the Most High, you two family, brothers and sisters. Thank you for tuning in again to this channel, Unveiling Truth. Starting right off the back, I want to thank all of my new YouTube subscribers, those that are joining in. I also ask that you always hit that notification bell in the corner. Make sure you get all the videos and everything. And be careful of the dirty scammers that are out there that are using my name and pic asking for money. I will never ask you for money. Also, when you watch this video, make sure you smash that thumbs up button so we can get the algorithm views out. We're going to jump immediately back into what we've been studying, and that is the book of Daniel. I'm going to be moving the camera around a little bit and working with my tablet. I got a new setup here because I really want you guys to see the words of this book. This is a very deep study in what I am doing. I'm not interested in you seeing me as much, but I want you to see the words and what I'm reading from the Bible. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of additional reading from my tablet on this subject. But we are starting off in the book of Daniel. We're on chapter 9 and we're going to verse 20. This is Daniel chapter 9, verse 20. When we left off in the last video, we were talking about how the book of Revelations parallels with Daniel. So we have Daniel chapter 7 and 25. It parallels to the book of Revelations chapter 13 and 5. And once again, there is so much meat in this. We are going to have to break this up again into another segment. So this is the Rapture, Lie, Hoax. I believe this now is part 7. I believe it is part 7. So we're going to get right into this. So Daniel chapter 9, and we're going to start reading at verse 20. And the scripture reads, I'm going to do some adjusting here so you can see and come up close. Daniel said, and whilst I was speaking and praying and confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and presenting my supplication before the Lord my God for the holy mountain of my God. Now here we have Daniel, which Israel has been in Babylonian captivity. Israel has been plummeted, the walls tore down, the city destroyed, and they have been in Babylonian captivity. And Daniel is praying. And he's making intercession and supplication, and he's speaking to God, saying, God, when will you restore Israel back to his place again? So let's go down to verse 21. Yea, whilst I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of the evening oblation, about the time of the evening sacrifice. The angel Gabriel comes in. And this is what Gabriel says. So now we have Daniel. He's been praying, asking God to show him when he would restore Israel from the plumage of the Babylonian captivity, them coming in, plundering and taking over everything. That's the one request that Daniel wanted to know. And we see here in verse 22, and he informed me and talked with me and said, O Daniel, am now come forth to give thee skill and understanding. So the angel Gabriel comes in and says, I'm coming in, Daniel, to give you skill, knowledge, and understanding on this concept and the matter that you are bringing before God praying. He says, at the beginning of thy supplications, the commandment came forth, and I came to show thee, for thou art greatly beloved. Therefore, understand the matter and consider the vision. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression. That's one thing right there, to finish the transgression, and to make an end of sins. That's 2. And to make reconciliation for iniquity. 3. And to bring everlasting righteousness. That's 4. And to seal up the vision and prophecy. 5. And to anoint the most holy. 6. So there are 6 things right here that the angel Gabriel brings to Daniel and says, even though you've been praying for the restoration of Israel from the Babylonian captivity that you have been in, God has sent me with a word, and he sent me with more than enough to tell you what is going to take place. So we're going to do a little bit of reading here because there is a lot to this right here. It's a lot to this. So I'm going to try to make this as plain as possible as we get into this more and more. Let me see if I could get a good way for you guys to see this on my tablet here. I think we'll go with that. Let me see if I can make an adjustment. I got to come up a little bit closer for you so you can see that. That's too close. All right, we'll start reading from here on that. Okay, so we have here, Daniel reads the prophecies of Jeremiah concerning the 70-year punishment of the Jews. He turns to God in prayer and praises the Lord for his faithfulness, confessing the sins of the Jews' disobedience. While praying to God, Daniel emphasizes the righteousness of the Lord, contrasted with the sinfulness of his people. Daniel, in exile, admits that God's punishment is just. He meditates on the scale and intensity of God's punishment towards his people. So Daniel here is having a reflection in the moment that the reason why the children of Israel went into captivity was because of their disobedience and not keeping the laws and the commandments of God. And I'm going to do another adjustment here. Okay. So it says, after confessing sin and praising God for his righteousness, Daniel asked the Lord to hear his prayer. He hopes that God will spare the Jews from further punishment and restore them to Jerusalem. Gabriel, an angel from God, brings God's answer to Daniel. 77s have been decreed. Not only will Jerusalem be rebuilt and restored, but God will send his Messiah. Now, I want you to pay attention particularly to that 77s have been decreed. Now, we have 77s. So we have 70 times 7 is a 490-year span. So those 77s are 7 years of 70. 7 years times 7. So that gives us 490 years. So this is what the Messiah says to Gabriel, the angel. 77s have been decreed. Not only will Jerusalem be built and restored, but God will send his Messiah. That's 1. Sin and transgression will be finished. 2. Disobedience will be atoned for. 3. And this is disobedience for all people. This was not just for Israel. See, Daniel was praying just for Israel, but this is for all people. This is God's plan right here. 4, prophecies will be finished. 5, and righteousness will last forever. Okay, there were 6 things, and the anointed, and they had one with the anointing of the holy place. That would be number 6. Before these final good things happen, the Messiah will be cut off and Jerusalem will be destroyed. So here we have an intercession. We have a breaking in this period, in this timetable of this 70 times 7, these 490 years. So it says before these final good things happen, the Messiah will be cut off and Jerusalem will be destroyed again. So what Daniel sees here, God is showing him a vision and dreams of what is to come and what is to take place before the Messiah comes. So you're going to have Jerusalem being built and destroyed again. The Messiah is going to come. He's going to be cut off in the middle of the week. And then we're going to have a week left. There will be this 7-year week that will be left. Okay. So it says a prince will come and betray Israel, but will ultimately be destroyed. Then sin will be no more, and righteousness will endure always. Okay, so let us read further down. God answers Daniel, 77s have been decreed. Not only will Jerusalem be rebuilt and restored, but God will send his son, his Messiah. Sin and transgressions will be finished. Disobedience will be atoned for. Prophecies will be finished, and righteousness will last forever. Gabriel delivers God's response to Daniel's prayer. Daniel, in exile from his home, confessed Israel and Judah's sin and asked God to restore his people to Jerusalem. He prayed for God to be compassionate and in the time of punishment. God's answer is bigger than what Daniel is concerned about. God gave Daniel more than he could even ask for concerning Israel and when they were going to be restored as a nation again. Through Gabriel, the angel, God tells Daniel, 70 weeks have been decreed for your people and your holy city. At the beginning of this chapter, Daniel was studying the prophet Jeremiah's writing. So Daniel is in the Old Testament and he is looking at the prophet Jeremiah's writings, seeing the prophecies that Jeremiah spoke while under the unction of the Ruach HaKodesh. So it says Daniel was studying the prophet Jeremiah's writings, specifically about God's set time for Judah's punishment. 70 years, Jeremiah 25:11. Since 70 years of Babylonian captivity were nearly done, see, they were in exile. They were in Babylonian captivity for 70 years. So there's something about that number 70, the number 7. God says 70 times 7. So that's your 490 years right there from the 70 weeks. Okay. Since 70 years of Babylonian captivity were nearly done, Daniel hoped and prayed for the restoration of God's people to God's city, Jerusalem. But God now says there will be 70 weeks, literally 70 sevens, for the Jewish people and for Jerusalem to endure. So there are 70 weeks. So you have that 70 weeks, which are literally 70 sevens, 70 times 7, for the Jewish people and for Jerusalem to endure. The purpose of this time period is to finish the transgression. So a lot is going to take place in this 490 years. It will be to finish the transgression, to make an end of sin, to make atonement for iniquity, to bring an everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy. Excuse me. To seal up righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. All right. That most holy place will be Israel being rebuilt again. This is quite a list. Not only will Daniel and his people's transgression be finished, but sin itself will be put to an end. There will be an atonement for iniquity. The debt for sinfulness will be paid. Even more spectacular is the arrival of everlasting righteousness. Visions and prophecy will be sealed up, and there will be no more need to speak of the future. Last in this list of events is the anointing of the most holy place. This may refer the anointing of the new temple, prophesied about in Ezekiel 40 and through 46. So it says here, Daniel begins with a question about 70 years. hoping it means a restoration, and he gets an answer that dramatically exceeds his request. In 77s, God is promising to restore not only the Jews to Jerusalem, but to replace the sinfulness with righteousness. There is a future coming where iniquities, wickedness, and disobedience will be gone, and instead humankind will walk with God in righteousness, with obedience that will last forever. Prophecies won't be necessary because everything will be fixed. The earth will no longer be chaotic, a conflicted place. If the world was guaranteed to have perfect sunny weather forever, all weathermen would be out of a job. Despite the translation 70 weeks, the literal meaning is 77s from the Hebrew word shavah. These are thought to be units of years, not weeks. Let me see for you guys if I can make, okay, I already have an adjustment on that, making sure that you could see that good enough. Hopefully you can see those words good enough. Maybe I need to brighten that back up again. I'm working with something new here. Give me a second. It's a new setup I'm getting used to, so bear with me. Take that back to bright. All right, let's get back to what we were talking about. All right. Despite the translation 70 weeks, the literal meaning is 77s from the Hebrew word shavah. These are thought to be units of years, not weeks. Gabriel emphasizes to Daniel that he is to know and discern that there are divisions of time in which these things will happen. 70 weeks, 490 years is the entire length of time for this prophecy. But between the decree and the arrival of Messiah the Prince, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks, or a total of 69 weeks. At this point, the 70th week is left dangling. After the 69 weeks, Messiah the Prince will be cut off. There are 2 different divisions to the 69 weeks, or 483 years. One is 49 years, 7 weeks, and the next is 434 years, 62 weeks, adding up to 483 years. All right. I had that written down, 483 years. So you see, I said it's a lot to this with numbers, adding up to 483 years, 7 years shy of the entire 490 years. The prediction is that once the clock starts, there will be 483 years between the decree and the Messiah's coming. That event that starts the 77's clock ticking will be the issuance of a decree for the Jews to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. Gabriel describes this rebuilding that it will be built again with plaza and moat. Plaza is with streets, a big open wide entrance, and moat. A moat, you know, the moats that they built around castles, like it was dug out, a trench that either had water in it or it was just a trench dug around the city. Okay. Even in times of distress, plazas are wide open spaces within cities for the sake of public gatherings and trade. The moat mentioned may have been a ditch dug around the city for greater defense against invaders. The rebuilding of Jerusalem will occur during times of distress, but it will be completed. Gabriel mixes the restoration and rebuilding of Jerusalem, answering Daniel's specific request with a much grander restoration. The restoration of humanity and the earth and the grand scheme of things. The physical condition of Jerusalem is immaterial by comparison, but God shows his compassion and care, meeting Daniel at his point of passion, while answering above and beyond what Daniel even knows to ask. Later in Israel's history, there are several decrees and proclamations given by several different kings. And this is why I had to do a lot of reading into this, because it was so much information on this, where we talk about Israel being restored and rebuilt and the proclamation and the decrees that were given them. So later in Israel's history, there are several decrees and proclamations given by several different kings, allowing the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple as well as the city entirely. And you see those scriptures in Ezra 1 and 1 through 4, Ezra chapter 6, verses 1 through 12, Ezra chapter 7, verses 11 through 28, and also Nehemiah chapter 2. One view is that the decree was made in 444 BC by King Artaxerxes, which commands the Israelites to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Nehemiah chapter 2, verses 5 through 8, and Daniel chapter 9, verses 25. 483 years later is 3233 AD, where Jesus Christ enters Jerusalem triumphantly on a donkey. You see that? 483 years later. So is hailed by the people as the king sent by God, and is soon thereafter crucified, cut off. So there we have this, where 483 years later, after the decree by King Artaxerxes, which commands the Israelites to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, 483 years later after that, the Messiah comes and he is cut off. Now we had a total of 490 years. So we're missing there 7 years. See, the Messiah was cut off. So he comes 483 years later, which is in 33 AD, where Jesus Christ enters Jerusalem triumphantly on a donkey, is hailed by the people as the king sent by God, and as soon thereafter crucified, cut off. And we see Daniel gave the prophecy, the 70 times 7, which is 490. Messiah comes 483 years later, and there is a week, 7 years hanging in the balance. Okay, another view is that the decree in this prophecy is found in Ezra 7 by King Artaxerxes. This decree was issued in 458 BC. If this is the decree which Gabriel refers, then 483 years later lands at 2526 AD, right around when Jesus began his ministry. So at the end of the 69 weeks, 7 weeks plus 62 weeks, the Messiah arrives in Israel and is anointed. There is no certainty of which exact event is in view, but there is ample certainty that the prophecy was fulfilled. So you see, they're already saying that this prophecy was fulfilled. All right. So we get into the last part of this, and this is where we get into, is there a 7-year tribulation period, or is there a 3.5-year tribulation period? Which I told you my point of view from studying this now, I am leaning more towards the 3.5-year tribulation period, because there are numerous scriptures that talks about in the book of Daniel and the book of Revelations that the saints of the Most High will be given into the hands of the Antichrist for 3.5 years, for a times, and a dividing of time, which is 3.5 years. So let me read the last of this, and I'm going to end this on this note. 70 weeks have been decreed for your people and your holy city, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sin, to make atonement for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. So you are to know and discern that from the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah, the Prince, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. It will be built again with plaza and moat, even in times of distress. So we see there where he says a decree was going to be made by a king to rebuild Jerusalem, Israel, back up again with a moat around it, and also build the wall, the city, build the walls, build the plaza, build the streets, and the Messiah was going to be cut off. So it's very important that you understand that that 70 times 7 is the 490 years, and the Messiah comes 483 years after that decree was made by King Artaxerxes. Okay, so I'm going to leave this right here, and we're going to pick up, I believe, on part 7 series, and this should be the ending, and that's going to be Revelations chapter 13 verses 1 through 18. I'm going to be reading and discussing that a little bit more better, and we're going to end this on this Rapture series theory, and we'll get more into that in the next video. All right, brothers and sisters, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you got something out of that. Like I said, there's a lot of reading into this subject when you study this on the little horn, the Antichrist, and the 70 times 7, the 490 years and 7 years are hanging in the balance, and Messiah being cut off, and the decrees that are being made. So we'll give a little bit more meaning to it in our next video. All right, brothers and sisters, shalom.